meeting will also be available on our website in the future. So at this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. We will begin the meeting by sharing the land acknowledgement statement. We would like to begin by respectfully acknowledging that Dufferin County resides within the traditional territory and ancestral lands of the Tiahuantati, the Attawandaran, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe peoples. We also acknowledge that various municipalities within the County of Dufferin reside within the treaty lands named under the Haldimand Deed of 1784 and two of the Williams Treaties of 1818, Treaty 18 of the Nottawasaga Purchase and Treaty 19, the Agency Treaty. These traditional territories upon which we live and learn are steeped in rich Indigenous history and traditions. It is with this statement that we declare to honor and respect the past and present connection of Indigenous peoples with this land, its waterways, and resources. I'll turn it to the clerk now for a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Garretts?
Here.
Councillor Hall is absent. Councillor Hawkins?
Present.
Warden Horner?
Present.
Councillor McLean?
Present.
Councillor Nix? Councillor Wrench?
Yeah, I'm here.
Councillor Solomon?
Present.
And Chair Taylor.
Present. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Members may declare a pecuniary interest now. Please state the interest and general nature of thereof. Excuse me. Declarations must be verbal and in writing and can be emailed to the clerk. Madam Clerk, is there any questions that were sent in? No. Is anyone in the audience would like to ask any questions? No. Seeing none. We will move on to item 7, which is 7.1, report roads and bridge capital update. And Mr. Burns, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is our standard report that we, this is our standard report that we do following passing of the budget to articulate all of our road and bridge capital projects, because those are items that certainly the public is impacted by and all of you folks hear about. So if there are any questions on any projects, glad to answer.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Before we go, should we get this on the table first? Yes. Okay. So may I have a mover and a seconder for the following motion, that the report of the Director of Public Works, County Engineer, Public Report Works 2025-001 Road and Bridge Capital Update, February 2025, be received. Any comments? Oh, sorry. You're going to move it. I apologize. Okay. Can I have a seconder? Warden Horner. Any comments or questions on this item? No, seeing none. Oh, Councillor Wrench, I apologize. Did you want to speak to that?
Thanks. Yeah, I'm just curious about the culvert. They're all rehabilitations. Are they sent out as one tender document or for individuals?
Oh, Mr. Burns.
Through you, Chair. It depends on location, so we typically try to pool projects of similar scope that are within a reasonable proximity together. So I can't speak specifically to these, but based on looking at their locations, I'd be willing to bet there's probably a couple of tenders in there. But typically we do try to capitalize on the fact that we have similar scopes. So I could get you a clear answer once those tenders are finalized if you'd like.
I'd be curious as to why proximity would matter.
Generally, these contractors only have so many crews, so we want to get the work done within a specific season. If we spread it out too far, even just having too much work in one scope, we've found in the past that we don't get all of the work done within the season allotted. A lot of these projects require in-water work and those types of things, so the window is fairly short.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Any other further comments or questions? No, seeing none. All in favor of this item? Anyone opposed? No, no one's opposed. That passes unanimously. Okay, so the next report is item 7.2, the Dufferin County Forest, the annual report. Mr. Burns, did you want to speak to this before we put it on the floor?
Through you, Chair. Yes, so you'll notice that this report looks a little bit different from past years. Our new forester has put his own flair on how he'd like to present the ongoings in the forest. So this is generally in line with what we've done, though, where it articulates what we've done in 2024 as well as generally what's planned for 2025.
Okay. We'll get this on the floor first. May I have a mover and a seconder for the following motion, that report for Director Director of Public Works, County Engineer Report, Public Works, 2025-00-010, dated February 27th, be received. Could I have a mover for that? Councillor Garrett? Yeah, and Earl is going to second that. Thank you very much, Earl. Okay, any comments or questions on this item? Councillor Nix?
Yeah, I was very impressed with the report. The thing that caught my eye was the butternut trees that were planted that were sourced from Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. And I wondered, I assume those trees are canker-free or resistant to canker. I just wondered how, does Rideau Conservation Area, I mean, are they growing these or selling them? I have a sort of an interest here in getting some butternut trees that, for some other organization.
Mr. Burns?
Through you, Chair, certainly I could put you in touch with our forester, and he could probably give you all of the details for how to acquire them. But the goal here is to regenerate butternut tree that are resistant. Whether or not these ones are specifically resistant, I think we have yet to see, but there are some that are resistant. So there's testing that they can do to determine whether they are. And this is an attempt. Oh, hi. Kevin, would you like to answer how another group could acquire butternut trees?
Certainly. So I guess I'm speaking. Thank you. I was just curious that they came all the way from Rideau Conservation. I was with a meeting last night with the Bruce Trail people who just got some butternut trees, but they got them from, I forget the name of the nursery, and they're presumably canker resistant. Yep. So I'm just curious about Rideau Conservation Authority. Where did they get these trees from, or do we know?
Yeah, I believe that they have a plantation, and they have an operation that they're going on there. And if you look on their website, there is a link in there, and the forester, his first name is Ian. I can't remember his last name, but they do have a program, and they are looking for partners.
And are they selling these trees or giving them?
They're pretty much giving them away, and I think that they prefer to use like public-based organizations because the land tenure is a little more secure than going on private land. So
Maybe you could email me the contact name and.
certainly can, yes.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any further questions from the group? Warden Horner, please.
Comment. Excellent report. Thank you for your work on this. A couple of things. When I looked at the butternut item, I wondered, are we doing enough? Like, is this enough given the acres that we have? Are those numbers enough?
Well,
I guess you're sorry.
I think we're going to gauge the success of how well these trees do. We did plant them in close proximity to existing natural butternut trees that do have butternut canker, so we'll see how resistant these are. But yeah, I would like to in the future move on from planting them in a plantation setting and then spreading them throughout the Dufferin County forest and finding locations in the forest where they'll do. So yes, I would like to step it up, but it's kind of a slower process. And like we were gifted these 30 trees, and when we planted them in the summer, they all survived the initial planting. So we'll see come the spring, summer what the overwintering survival rate is, but we're pretty optimistic. And then perhaps we might look at transplanting some of these because they are kind of in a compact area, and perhaps spread those out throughout the forest. But certainly I would like to step up that program a little bit further.
Very good. Are you?
If I may, one further. The other thing that when I read the report, it wasn't clear to me immediately the relationship that you have with the trails and the economic development, community development group. But I understand you're working closely with those folks on any of the trail developments that are done with the forest.
Yes, we'll be working through that We do have a meeting coming up near the end of March, and we do have sort of a group that's coming together, and yeah, the Forest Division's a part of that with economic development and other organizations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Wrench?
Thank you. Through you, I am curious about something that didn't make it into the report from last year about Red Oak and how I think it's Red Oak, and there's something that's coming that's going to, well, is fatal to them, and I didn't see anything in this report on that. So I'm wondering if there's an update that could be brought forward to the status of the Red Oak.
Is there anything for, it's wilt, right?
Yes, there is the oak wilt, and we do have a continual monitoring program. I think I may have mentioned something, maybe not specifically about the red oak, but I thought that we, like our division staff is out there monitoring specifically for oak wilt throughout the summer and throughout the throughout the field season. And definitely, should we encounter it, action would be taken place. But we haven't had a positive encounter yet, and we still are doing our public knowledge, public promotions of it, information sessions at any time that we're out at a public event. The last time being the Winterfest in Mono. We're trying to disseminate that information as best we can, but certainly I can add more information about the threat of oak wilt and its locations in Ontario and the proximity to the Dufferin County Forest.
Very good, thank you for that. There is some more information on in section 3.2 of the report as well. And Mr. Burns, did you want to offer something further?
That's all I was going to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry to steal your thunder. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Nix, did you have something further? You're good? Okay. Okay, so we've got this on the floor. If there's no further comments or questions, can I have a motion to receive this report? Or sorry, we've got the motion. Can we all vote in favor? Excuse me. All in favor of receiving this report? Excuse me. Very good. Anyone opposed? No. Okay. Thank you very much, Kevin, for your time. It's a great report. Okay, that is the county forest report. And that is, so 7.3 is municipal staff climate change. Mr. Burns, did you want to speak to this one at all? Yes, you can.
Through you, Chair. Yes, so this is, I forget what the exercise was, but when council did a quick review not that long ago, one of the items that was noted was additional support with respect to climate work. So here is an offering where that team put together some really excellent training. It's an online 3-part module that was incredibly informative. It brings it down to a very practical perspective. So if these concepts are abstract to anybody, it really kind of brings it home. And there was enough sort of funny things in there to keep you entertained as you're working through as well. So this is something we can make available to each of you. You can take back to your local municipalities, and if you'd like them, your staff to work through it, then you're welcome to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Burns. Can we have a motion to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Nix and Councillor McLean, thank you very much. Okay, any comments or questions on this item? Warden Horner.
As opposed to just leaving it up to those around the table, would it be possible to send out a notice to the lower tiers indicating that this training is available? And I know in my own particular instance, I know the staff would be really open to participating and using it.
Through you, Chair. Absolutely, yes.
Thanks.
Very good. Any further questions? My only comment, Mr. Burns, is the spot on here where it talks about staff reported increased knowledge and confidence, and we've integrated in, the climate action into their roles, sort of a motherhood statement. I'm just curious, is there anything definitive? Like, is there examples of that? And if I'm putting you on the spot, I apologize, but I'm just curious if there's something that we could speak to that's tangible.
Through you, Chair, I think there are examples where people are now applying a climate lens to the work that they're doing. There are a lot more conversations than there used to be, sort of exploring how, for a capital project, for example, you can contemplate climate, how you can work it into your infrastructure. And I'm naturally speaking to the portfolio in public works. There are many others, but there are tangibles, and we probably could report on some successes in the future if you'd like. But there's certainly, I would say, just the general inherent desire for people to have a conversation about these things, to explore what they can do itself is a success.
Very good. Thank you for that. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor of approving this motion? Yes. Is there anyone opposed? I don't believe so. Okay, that motion carries. We are on to the 7.4. This is the Better Homes Dufferin update. I guess, Mr. Burns, did you want to speak to this at all, or is it kind of a self-evident one here?
Through you, Chair, it's really sort of a wholesome update on the
Yes.
project, just so that everybody understands where we are and understands next steps, which will include engagement with the local municipalities to get those bylaws adopted. So there is a draft bylaw that climate staff will bring forward to local municipal staff, and then the administrative design of the program will occur throughout 2025 with implementation early 26. So if there are any questions on the program between myself and our manager of climate and energy, I'm sure we can give you an answer, but the intent was to just give all the information so the council knows where we are, because I know there have been several questions.
Okay, very good. Can I have a motion to get this item on the floor? Fred, were you making that motion? Very good. Can I have a seconder? Earl, did you wink? Earl winked. So that's the seconder. Very good. Any comments or questions? Councillor Nex, you wanted to speak to this?
Yeah, I had mentioned to, that first of all, I think this is great. And I had mentioned to Scott at the beginning, I announced this at our council meeting this week and talked to, we do a newsletter. And I was going to write up a little blurb on this thing, but as Scott said, maybe all the municipalities, maybe we should do it jointly. Like, I don't want to write something and then have Amaranth write something slightly differently. And we got all kinds of time, all the rest of this year to do it. So are you, who's going to, is it a possibility that someone on county staff is going to prepare a press release or something like, or something that we could use rather than me trying to write it?
Yeah, if I could, that's exactly where my head was too, is how are we going to get this out to the public and make sure they understand it? Mr. Burns?
Through you, Chair, I think it would be wise for us to have consistent messaging, seeing as
Yeah.
it is one program. So certainly I think that's something we could work with local municipalities on.
And what would the timing, when should we either put this in our newsletters or on our website or whatever, midsummer or fall?
I think stay tuned. We'll figure out when the best, because we want it to be successful, and that communication will be a key part of it. So stay tuned, but probably at least a few months before implementation, unless, Sarah, you'd like to add something through the chair?
Sure.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So we actually have to wait for Infrastructure Canada first. So we can't say, I know. So the funding comes through Infrastructure Canada to FCM. I've talked to FCM. They also can't do anything. So I've heard that they're going to be announcing this in a batch with a whole bunch of other municipalities. So there's lots of us who are waiting on all of this. Fortunately, we're kind of at their mercy until we can say anything like in a press release or anything like that.
Yep, very good. Councillor Nex?
The only other question I had, and I already asked this of Scott, but the part that I was puzzled about, I know how much is going into the loans. I know it's $40,000 for 20 years at 2.5%, and there's 0% for some, but then there's the phrase in here, again, I forget the number, it's $2.X million to the county for administrative work and incentives. So I was asking Scott, we don't know what those incentives, they're going to tell us what the incentives are. We don't have some liberty to decide, I don't know, make heat pumps $500 cheaper than their market value or something. We don't know what those incentives are?
Yep, go ahead.
Thanks, through you, Chair. The incentives, I'll say that we wanted to have a lot more in there, but when we applied for it, FCM did tell us to pull the budget back, just trying to also spread the love across the country. So really those incentives that were in there originally had to get pulled back, where we have to have things like sunk costs and a website and things like that. We can't really change the cost of those. So the incentives that are in the program now are actually the 0% for low-income households. That's the incentive. But however, it can be stacked with a whole bunch of other levels of funding. things. So yeah, so provincial fund or provincial programs that were just announced, they can be stacked with that. And the whole idea is that they will have, it'll be an energy concierge service or like an energy coach for residents to be walked through how to actually stack that to optimize all of the options out there for people. And those options also may change over the course of 4 years. So there may be additional ones that come up, you know, in a couple of years from now, we don't know. So it's really about just trying to do that optimization process, which again, that'll be something that comes from an energy coach.
Very good. Councillor Next, you're good? Okay. We've got Warden Horner and then Councillor Wrench.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to say, again, thanks to our creative staff. You know, we are getting involved in something that's going to be very different than those around us are doing. And I'd just like to say great work to the climate change group and the creativity that you've shown and the stick-to-itiveness. I'm sure these kinds of grants are not easy to get, and you have to go back 2 or 3 times and rework them. So thank you for that kind of effort. And the joy about living in Dufferin County is that we are small enough to kind of be nimble, but big enough to make a difference. So I'm really happy that you've done as much as you've been able to do here to get us this far.
Is that a question?
Very good. Mr. Burns, and then we'll go to Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Warden. That's wonderful to hear. That team, we reported a while back the amount of funds that they have pulled in through their creativity, and that's a good way to put it. And their stick-to-itiveness, so you've really picked up what they're laying down, so to speak. And this program itself is incredibly unique and will be something that really puts Dufferin on the map. So thank you for noting that, and that team has done a lot of great work.
That's excellent. Thank you both. Councillor Wrench?
Thanks. Just a couple of questions. One is on the overall funding. Is it at any way at risk if there's a change in government at the federal level?
Burns?
Short answer would be yes.
Question number 2 is around administration and the costs of it. And you might not even know how this breaks down or not, but that's $600,000 a year or so to administer the program. If this is mostly going to an outside group, I'd have real questions about whether or not we could hire people in-house, right? I'm not saying use current staff. I'm saying add staff to do it cheaper. And that's probably an unfair question, but it certainly sticks out in my mind.
Mr. Burns, did you want to comment on that?
Thank you, Councillor Wrench. I think we could look at that, and perhaps if that model makes sense, we could include that in a next report, because obviously this is simply an update. So we could, the next time we come around, we could speak to that a bit further.
And I think the last piece is, and again, we don't know yet, but if local tiers are the ones that are going to have to get this onto tax bills, like if I'm going to switch hats, I'd be worried about how that looks.
Okay. I don't know that there's you wouldn't want to. Sure.
I'll give it a go. So the intent here is to minimize the impact as much as possible, and part of those administrative costs include support to the member municipalities to help with that. The details I can't really speak to, but the intent is to absolutely minimize that impact, which we will through the next conversations and engagement make sure that we're doing that as best we can. But yeah, you're correct. The details have yet to evolve.
Very good. Councillor Wrench, are you good? Okay, excellent. Any further comments or questions on this item? Very good. We already have this on the floor, so all in favor? Yes. Anyone opposed? Seeing none. Thank you very much. Councillor McLean is opposed. So that item passes. So we are now on to item 7.5, Future Ready Dufferin, Sustainable Neighborhoods. Mr. Burns, did you want to give a preamble on this one?
So this, similar to the last one, is an update to let council know where we are on certain things. You'll notice that there's been a name change. This formerly was referred to as the Green Development Standards. And through engagement, it has changed to a more flexible tiered structure that we intend on moving forward with. If you look at the timeline or the project scope and implementation piece, you'll see it speaks to the metrics and sort of the 4 categories that are covered. So natural environment, community and transportation, built environment, and local priorities, so it can be customized. There's also an attachment of some drafts that you can have a look at to understand sort of the scale and scope of what this is looking at. There will also be a talent and business attraction plan that's put together in step with the economic development teams. And then there's the implementation process where there will be a resource from Grey County for the 3 municipalities to help with implementation. So if there are any questions on the program, we're glad to respond.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Can I get a motion to get this item on the floor, please? Councillor McLean is going to make that motion, and a seconder. Okay. Councillor Hawkins, thank you very much. Any comments or questions on this? Councillor Nix.
Yeah, I read this, and this is fine. I guess, and maybe I read it too quickly. The part I didn't understand is you're going to develop these metrics, and now we have developers out there building houses, but this is not part of the building code. They're not required to do these things, and it is going to increase the cost of houses. I guess I'm just wondering, or maybe could you explain to me, do we have any, I was going to ask you, what's going to be, what is the uptake going to be? You can't answer that. How do we get the builders to actually use these metrics? That's the part I was puzzled about when I read the report.
Mr. Burns?
Through you, Chair, great question. I think those metrics have yet to really be developed as far as how we get people to participate. But ultimately, what this is doing, because there's a lot of conversation about how it might increase costs, and I think it's in the neighborhood of 1% to 4% on purchase. And those costs may be passed along. But what this is really looking at is long-term affordability, which is equally, if not more, critical. And it's more than just the buildings. It's looking at the entire community structure of subdivisions and those types of things. But as far as uptake, we'll have to see sort of what the program develops. I don't know, Sarah, if you have anything you can add beyond what I'm saying. Not really? Yeah? Okay.
Yes, thank you. So through you, Chair. So to the attachment that was there, those are the metrics. So that's what's being proposed right now. So you can see kind of there's a whole bunch of different elements to it. So it may come in, like Scott said, at the building level, at the neighborhood level, and also at the lot level too. So when we're looking at things in the community, be around stormwater management, if it's in the building, maybe something about making a house EV ready. So that's not, adding in a charger. That's just literally putting in the conduit for when they're building a house. So that way in the future, a resident could put in an EV charger. It just makes it's kind of a no-brainer to me anyways for something like that. And so these are the metrics that are in there. So the thing that is still up in the, I'll say we're still working through, is whether it's going to be mandatory or voluntary. As Scott kind of mentioned too, that the name change was a result from a heavy tiered system that was a mandatory piece to the more flexible point system, recognizing that these are going to be enacted by 24 local municipalities across the whole area. So building in that flexibility for the municipalities and also for developers, there will be a point system associated with it. Now, again, the implementation and the rollout and all of those things that how this would actually then look on the ground, that's the part that we're still working on. But as after the past 6 to 8 months of engagement, this is really what we've come up with. And I'll just say as a reminder too that the engagement that was done with the public, with industry, and with local municipal staff and planners.
Very good. Councillor Nix, are you okay? Okay. Councillor Wrench.
Fred was very diplomatic, so I'm going to try to be as well. And my concerns are right along the lines of Fred's. We're putting a lot of time, effort, and money into this. And it is all, from what I can tell, it's all voluntary. I haven't talked to anyone at staff level that says, yes, we can put it somewhere, we can include this, that it's going to have to be done. And it seems to me we're committed to keep it on going down this road. And I have serious concerns about it.
Did you want to elaborate on those concerns, or do you think you're?
Well, I don't know
What would
why.
you like to do?
I don't know why we would spend again, and I said this when we first started. I'm not quite sure why we're doing this. If it can't be implemented, if it has to be if the uptake has to be voluntary. So I am not in favor of this. Is the simplest way to put it.
Very good. Mr. Burns, did you want to reply to that?
Through you, Chair, I believe the determination of whether it is mandatory or voluntary has yet to be made. So that could be, I mean, that could boil down to a decision of council.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, on that, I think it would have to be voluntary because there's certain things in here that for rural development don't necessarily make sense. You know, a requirement for sidewalks, for example, a lot of rural municipalities do not have them, so you'd be introducing a new asset class, and then the level of service that goes along with it. Like I don't. Like currently, it's our decision at the local level if we want sidewalks, and then stuff like. And I'm not trying to be overly critical, but you know, the being within a 10-minute walk of a connector street, depending on what the definition of a connector street could be a challenge for some developments in Amaranth like that. So, I think there's a bit of a. I think that's why it needs to be voluntary because. Trying to identify things that will work in both settings, and it might not be feasible.
Mr. Burns?
Through you, Chair, and Sarah may want to add something, but that's why the benefit of the flexible points-based system works as opposed to it being tiered. So it's not making it mandatory that you have to put in sidewalks. You can sort of pick and choose elements, and many of those elements are things that developers are already doing. So they would get acknowledgement for that work because. By no means is this a statement towards developers that they don't do work in this direction. It's just, it'll give credit to those who are and motivate those who aren't.
Okay. Warden Horner?
I guess I see this whole process as aspirational. And if we ever want to be better at our design of subdivisions, then I think it's time to probably put some pieces on the table and say, you know, this is what we would love to see. Not necessarily that you have to get there on every item, depending on site and all kinds of other considerations. But if we want our subdivisions to be more connected, more sustainable, then I think we've got to lay down some lines in the sand and say, this is what we'd really like to see. And if you want to get the points that you're going to need to pass this through our council, then these are some of the things we'd like to see addressed. So I see it as an opportunity to do better.
Warden Horner, if I may, so what would you see next steps then? Do you want to throw this back and have it revised, or how did you?
No, I'd like to see them keep working at it and then be able to come to Malmer Township and say, okay, here's how we would see it used at your local level, that some of your planners would have these considerations when they're doing some kind of site reviews.
So if I may, you're going to be opposed to this today then, and you're going to ask them to go back? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
I'm in support of
Okay,
what
but
they've done so far.
Of what they've done so far?
Yeah.
But you think there's more room to go? I just want to understand.
No, not necessarily. Well, I'm not sure. I'd like to see them come back and with a final at some point. I don't think this is your final. This is a draft date.
Okay. Mr. Burns?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, so the next steps are listed at the bottom of the report, and council will see a report back in June.
Okay. Any further comments or questions on this item then? We're going to come back in June, so that probably appeases it for now. Okay, seeing none. All in favor of this report? Yes. And any opposed? Councillor Wrench? Councillor Wrench is opposed. Thank you very much, everyone. Okay, so that moves us on to 7.6. And this one will most likely take a little bit of time. So this is the new Operations Center update. And Mr. Burns, would you like to speak to this item?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. You'll note that we have a closed session item as well, so I'll do my best to keep those things separate.
Thank
The
you.
purpose of this first report is, again, similar to the other reports, to give you the full scope of where we started and how we got to where we are. Just to explain the entire process, if there are any questions on it, there's a project timeline in there that explains our feasibility study that was completed that confirmed that the current operations center cannot support service. It confirmed the area of land that's required to build new operations center, as well as the location. And then as part of this and closed session, there's a conversation about land selection through the matrix that was developed. The engagement with the member municipalities is included in this report. Then next steps would be property acquisition, then moving into design. Obviously, we can't do the design without having a piece of land solidified. And then we would develop critical path as well as cost estimates to move forward. So this, again, is just a high-level update so everybody understands every single piece of it, because it's been a while since we've talked about it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Can I have a motion to get this on the floor, please? Councillor Nix? Anyone? We have a second here. Okay. Any comments or questions on this item? No, seeing none. I think most of the conversation is going to happen later in the agenda. So can we have a vote on approving this item? All in favor? Yes. Anyone opposed to this? No. So it passes unanimously. Thank you very much, everyone. So at this time, we come to discussion, which is item 8.1, and this is a public consultation on road safety for horse and buggies, and some excellent work is being done here. And Councillor McLean, did you want to speak to this item?
I'd be pleased to. Thanks, Chair. So committee members will have heard me speak about this item before, but just as a quick recap, on October 24th, the Township of Melanchthon convened a public town hall in Hornings Mills that brought together members of the Mennonite community, the County of Dufferin, the OPP, the MTO, and then township staff as well, to talk about the challenges that the Mennonite community have been facing around road safety. Some of you will remember there's been a number of high-profile collisions with horse and buggies over the previous 2 to 3 years. Some of them quite serious. And so we wanted to start a dialogue looking at both how the Mennonite community can better protect themselves, but also what those other stakeholders, levels of government, can do to potentially support them and make them safer. I'm just going to provide a brief update on some of the work that Melanchthon has done since that meeting. We are in the final stages of passing our own township budget. And as part of that budget, we are looking at installing 30 more signs along township roads indicating horse and buggy passage. We've also been working with the Mennonite community to develop a brochure on what they can do to better protect themselves. So things around illuminating the horse and carriages, for example, reminders about how to safely travel on roads. And then also looking at, for the next stage, would be education and awareness for the broader public. And so looking at opportunities to collaborate with the county and potentially with the OPP on public awareness about how motorists should approach and safely pass horse and buggies. So that's kind of where we are. I do have some questions in terms of where the county is in their process, but I'll just leave it there for the moment.
Very good. And just process, there's no motion being here. We're just having a general discussion, so there's no need to do anything. Would anybody like to offer any commentary to this item or any questions? Yes, go ahead.
Oh, I thought it was very good work by Melanchthon, and good for convening the group. I learned some stuff. Thought it was interesting. I had a question maybe for Mr. Burns about the weight sensors to trigger traffic lights. That would be similar to, I guess, motorcycles and other things also wouldn't trigger. So it might be something like, is that a problem in general that we need to look at improving?
Mr. Burns.
Through you, Chair. So I think when they were speaking to that, it can be an issue. I think part of the issue is with the horse and buggy, the weight is dispersed over such a length that you might just have half the buggy on the loop. But the area that they noted was Dufferin Road 9 and Highway 10, and there was a conversation about, I forget what it's called, but there are some municipalities that have high Mennonite populations where they actually have a trigger system where there's a button that buggy users can utilize. So that might be something that the MTO will consider. I forget where that was left with the MTO, but that was what was talked about.
Very good. Councillor Garrett, so you're good to go. Councillor McLean.
Thank you. So just a question for Mr. Burns. You were kind enough, generous enough to come into the Township Council about a month ago just to provide an update on this item. I was wondering if you could speak to the work of the county on what is transpiring after this meeting, some of the work that you guys are doing. I know that the planning department had started work on a publicly accessible brochure for motorists about safely passing vehicles, and I know that you guys had some next steps that you had talked about. So could you provide an update to the committee on that, please?
Mr. Burns.
Through you, Chair, absolutely, Councillor McLean. So we have re-engaged with the Mennonite community. That was one of our next steps. So those conversations have started. We're trying to develop a map of the routes that they primarily use. We have purchased some signs which will be installed in the spring, and we're working on the pamphlet which should be completed by June. So I think it would be good. And I think I mentioned when I visited you folks that we probably should connect with your CAO just to make sure that we're aligned and there's not duplication, because I think we may be working on similar things, so we could probably take it and refine things together when the time comes. So we'll connect with your CAO to make sure that that we're aligned.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you.
Councillor McLean, you're good?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Just as an aside from my end, we do support each other here on County Council, and the work that's been done by Councillor McLean and his council on this is duly noted. I did share this out just on my own social media channels, and over 25,000 views. That is significant for our small little area. Like a typical well-viewed thing would be 4,000 or 5,000. So. People are very interested in the great work that you're doing here, and much sympathy and wanting to solve. So kudos to yourself. Yes, Councillor Garrett.
Just curious, does that now make you an influencer?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We live in a small little area, so of the 10 people that read it. Either way. Okay, so there's nothing to receive here. There's no action to take, so we'll move on to item 9.1, which is correspondence. Township of Melanchthon. I'll just quickly read 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3. So Township of Melanchthon, a resolution from the Township of Melanchthon was deferred from our October IES meeting about setting aside funding to secure additional equipment, resources, and patrol officers to add enforcement to roads falling under the jurisdiction of the County of Dufferin. Madam Clerk, we're just simply receiving these items all in one, I would assume? Yeah, like there's no need to discuss each item, correct?
That's up to the committee if they'd like to.
Okay. Any comments or questions on, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Any kind of comments or questions on 9.1? Councillor Garrett.
So 9.1, that's the policing one, correct?
It is.
Yeah. Just wondering, it might be an unfair question now, but with all of Dufferin local municipalities using the OPP now, is there any savings to be had with having the agreement between the county and the OPP rather than each individual municipality? I want to say no, because the formula I think is based on per person. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair Taylor. Yes, the formula would still apply, whether it was done by each municipality or by the county. I mean, the only thing I could offer in respect to whether there are any advantages to having the contract with the county would be perhaps for us to consult with the County of Wellington, who that's how they have moved forward with policing. But other than that, I don't really think there would be a cost benefit.
Okay, thank you. I was just thinking that, if it's going to stay at the local municipality, my thought would be that if there's enhancements that the local municipality handle that themselves, which I believe the town of Mono currently does, does the town of Mono get revenues from tickets on county roads? As if that's the case, then lift it. So Mr. Burns is saying, yeah, so in this situation, if Mono, you're paying for an enhancement, I would assume, on some county roads, and you're getting the revenue for that. So to me, it makes it you're adding another participant with the OPP by having it go through the county is all I was thinking.
Yeah. Councillor Nix, did you want to speak to that?
I hadn't thought of that. Our enhancement, that our extra officer works almost solely on county roads and provincial highways, Highway 10 and Airport Road. I mean, that's where he spends most of his time. And I didn't know we do get the revenues from the tickets. But by the way, 70% of the revenues from the tickets goes to support a court in Caledon. We don't actually get it all that revenue.
Okay, very good. Any other, Councillor McLean.
Yeah, thank you. Just speaking from Melanchthon's perspective, and kind of where this came from. So Melanchthon, like other municipalities, have paid for OPP enhancements. We put aside in last year's budget about $20,000 for some additional policing, primarily around the weekends, when we see more traffic coming through our township. It had a significant impact. Like the number of traffic stops, the number of tickets that were issued. We heard from the community that they felt safer because they were seeing a greater police presence. It has, for such a small investment of $20,000, it did have a demonstrable impact. And so around the local tier council table, the conversation was that it would be our opinion that we would love to have the county also step up to the table, contribute some money towards enhanced policing on county roads. We don't see this really as a revenue generator. I think as one of the members mentioned, the amount that we end up bringing in after all of everything is deducted is quite small. This is really about enhancing police presence in our county, recognizing that I believe all of us, or at least most of us, have identified speeding and dangerous driving as a significant challenge. And so we're really hoping that this council will consider an enhanced contribution from the county.
Okay, very good. Do you want to offer anything to that? You look like you, no? No. Okay. Any other further comments or questions at this time? No. Okay. Oh, Councillor Wrench, sorry, I was just ready to move on. Go ahead, please, sir.
And that was my question. Like, if we receive this, we're moving on. Is that right? Which is fine by me, but like there seems to be some mixed messaging going on here.
Well, there's no motion on the floor, so we'd need a motion. I didn't get the sense that Councillor McLean was making a motion necessarily. Were you doing that, Councillor McLean? Or?
I would be pleased to move a motion, at least to. I would love to have this conversation around the council table. So okay. If I need to issue a motion to do that, I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Okay. Is that all you want to do? Is defer it to council and have that live in a council meeting?
Yes, at this point. Thank you.
Our CIO would like to interject here. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just from a process perspective, should this committee wish to make a recommendation around this resolution from Melanchthon, then you're welcome to do that by way of a motion, and then that motion would be debated at County Council. If you receive it, that's also an option, and someone at County Council could still choose to have a discussion and make a motion at County Council. So if the committee feels strongly about making a recommendation, I would recommend that you do that. And so then that comes to County Council as a recommendation. If you don't want to make that recommendation, then just receive it.
Very good. Thank you for that. It sounds like we do feel strongly about it, and Councillor McLean, you'd like to lead that
Yes.
initiative. So do you want to try and articulate what you want to make as your motion?
So the motion would be that County Council invest in additional policing measures to patrol county roads, with a focus on speed enforcement.
Okay, very good. Councillor Nix, did you want to second that, or you want to? You'll second it? Okay, Councillor Nix seconds, and then Councillor Nix, the floor is yours.
I guess I'm all in, who could be against this? I don't understand. Like Mono and Melanchthon already pay for enhanced services from the OPP, and our enhanced services are either mainly on provincial roads or county roads. So what would this do if the county started paying the OPP for? I guess I just don't understand. It's getting kind of complicated. If Mono wants enhanced OPP services, we put the money on the table and get it. Is this motion mean the county will put some more money on the table?
Yeah. Would you like to clarify that?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just, and I think everybody realizes this, but policing is a local municipal responsibility. It is not a county responsibility. And so currently, we don't budget for anything around policing. That budget falls to the responsibility of the local municipalities. And when you start moving responsibilities between tiers, it does become a bit more complicated and a bit more confusing. So those spheres of responsibility are there for a reason. They're outlined in the Municipal Act. And currently, again, policing is a local municipal responsibility.
If I may, to our CIO, would it make sense then to change the motion that we would like to write a letter of support to local municipalities and have them consider supporting it? Would that make more sense, or would you have mentoring for us on where to go with this?
Well, from a county perspective and looking at it from a county responsibility perspective, my recommendation is that you receive it and take no further action.
Councillor McLean, you looked like you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, and with all due respect to the comments from the CAO, I think it is the county's responsibility to look after road safety on county roads. And I would put this in that bucket. There's not a suggestion that the county come to the table as an equal partner or a full partner in covering the costs of OPP to police the different municipalities. We recognize that is a lower tier responsibility. But this council has identified road safety as a priority. And as of right now, it is up to the townships and the towns to increase that funding whenever it's possible. We all have very limited budgets, especially in Melanchthon, to police county roads. And so we think it would behoove the county to come to the table with some funding to enhance policing. And just to Councillor Nix's question, what could this look like? In Melanchthon, we are able to afford to pay for additional policing for 1 to 2 days a week. So with additional funding on the table, we could see that expanded to perhaps 3 or 4 days, for example. Obviously, not just in Melanchthon, it would be across the county network. I would just like to have this come to council for a broader conversation.
Can you, so you're right now, just as a review, your motion is essentially just that, right? To bring it to no. Madam Clerk, did you want to read it then so everybody understands, and then we'll go to Councillor Wrench.
Through you, the motion on the floor is that the county invest in additional police measures for county roads for speed enforcement.
Okay. Councillor Wrench?
Thanks. Through you, I'm going to be against this one way or the other. But because I like to kind of think in non-linear ways, I have a question for the CAO. And I completely agree that this isn't a county responsibility. We shouldn't do it. If we felt like it, would it be possible for the county to transfer funds to lower tier municipalities and request that they be used for policing? Because I doubt we could enforce it.
CAO, would you like to, Sonia?
Through you, Mr. Chair. I mean, certainly, if county council would like to transfer funds to the local municipalities, that is within your purview to do that, keeping in mind that we did not budget for that for 2025. However, as county councilors, you have a responsibility to look at what the county's sphere of jurisdiction is and to ensure that that's where your focus is. However, like I said, it is within your purview to make that decision.
Yeah. Councillor Garrett.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same lines as Councillor Wrench, and that's why I will support it, not just so it comes to council as a whole, not that I support the idea, but I think there's different ways to approach it. If council wants to allocate a certain amount for policing in 2026, that's then spread based on the number of county roads a local tier has. I think that's the conversation that needs to be had and at the council level, and then we can decide as a group if that's something we want to do. Thanks.
Ms. Pritchard, did you want to?
Sorry, just again, as a process matter, and maybe it's a good thing we're not going to have committees anymore, because whatever happens at the committee, whether it's, agreed to or not, it still gets discussed at county council if someone wants to discuss it. So you don't have to support something just so that it would be discussed at county council. You're certainly welcome to do whatever you like, but that doesn't, not supporting it doesn't preclude conversation at county council.
Thank you for that. Councillor Nix.
Yeah, I'm all for a conversation at the council level, but I'm going to be against the motion here at the committee level.
Okay, very good. Any other further thoughts? Councillor Hawkins, did you want to talk to that?
Well, I'm a little bit confused, and it's a good idea, but when you really think about it, the Airport Road and Penn Highway, especially Airport Road, which happens to go right through Mulmer Township and Mono, and it's a very, very busy road, and the county actually maintains that road, and in a way, this couldn't be discussed, but in a way, why don't they maintain the police on it? They maintain the road, so why don't they maintain the road, the police, and pay for the policing? And that can be discussed. I know it's putting Sonia on quite a spot, but I think it warrants a discussion.
Okay, very good. If I could, I think we're heading towards we're gonna move this on to a regular council meeting. To me, whenever you're going to vote no, you should share why. And to me, there's rules in place, and each municipality is responsible for policing. That's the only reason that I'm going to not support it. But Councillor McLean, in terms of safety and roads and whatnot, you can always count on me to err on that side of caution and support. But just the way it's written here, the county wouldn't do it in my mind. So I just see this as a non-starter, and I just wanted to share that full on. So if there's no other commentary, we'll just. I guess we're going to vote on the motion that's on the floor. Seeing no other commentary, all in favor of the motion as put forth? All opposed? Okay, so that motion fails. Do we want to make another motion and simply that it goes to county council?
Just receive.
Yeah, just receive. Okay, yeah, good point. So now it'll come forward. Yeah. You're giving me that look that says, why are we doing that? But thank you for the look and the push in the right direction. Okay, so 9.2 is the county or the town of Melanchthon would like to send a resolution to request traffic calming measures at County Road 17 and Highway 10. Mr. Burns, did you want to just update the group on where this long and winding road is right now?
Through you, Chair. So doing work within the functional footprint of another jurisdiction's intersection is not typical practice, nor is it advisable. We are committed to road safety. In our TMP, it recommended that we capture and document collision data formally, and council may recall, or committee may recall, that we received permission to purchase some software to help us in that effort. That software should be up and running later this year. Further to that, our TMP also talked about putting together a formal road safety plan, which is something that, as well as resources to go along with it, those are the things that we would really need to address road safety in a more proactive manner throughout the county. But as far as doing work within another jurisdiction's functional operational footprint, I would strongly advise that we do not.
Okay, very good. Any comments or questions? Councillor Wrench.
Thank you. Yeah, two, I guess, just quick ones. That software that Scott mentioned. So it doesn't matter if it's our jurisdiction, that intersection, that software will capture all information from any intersection anywhere?
Mr. Burns?
Through you, Chair, correct. And it would allow us to analyze what we could do on the road. It could theoretically analyze somebody else's jurisdiction as well, but it would require a fair bit of legwork on the ground with respect to survey and measurements and those types of things. So we still wouldn't be advising to do work in those locations. But for that particular instance, we could do an assessment of a segment of Dufferin Road 17, for example, to see what mechanisms could be in place to make the road itself safer.
Right.
Did you have a follow-up? Go ahead.
Yeah, just briefly. So like it would give us information if we were making a delegation, for example, to MTO to say, you've got a bad intersection here and we have the data to prove it.
Mr. Burns.
Through you, Chair, I would suggest that yes, that would be correct. It gives us a direct line to data that currently we have to wait months to receive. And you may recall when we talked about the software in the first place, we understand council's frustration when we say we're going to do a review. It takes a very long time even just to get the data, let alone to do the review. This gives us direct access to information that certainly council could use for delegation.
Councillor McLean, do you want to speak to this item?
Just the last part of my question.
Okay, Councillor Wrench, go ahead.
What's the length of the functional footprint of that intersection?
Through you, Chair. So there's no defined length for a functional footprint. It goes beyond the jurisdictional boundaries. It is any infrastructure that speaks to an intersection then becomes part of that functional footprint because it's speaking to the intersection. So if you put up a sign, 3 kilometers away, this is a stretch, but 3 kilometers away with respect to that intersection, you have now extended that functional footprint.
Thanks.
Okay. Councillor McLean, did you want to speak to that?
Just very briefly, and I want to again thank Mr. Burns for coming into our council and explaining the functional footprint and why the county doesn't want to get involved within that. I think I'm in complete agreement. I think it makes complete sense. I think for us, what our hope would be is that we can work collaboratively. The township, the county can work collaboratively in terms of continuing to put this on the province's radar. So we have had these conversations at the political level in our delegations and in conversations with our MPP. Our hope is just that county staff, anytime there's opportunities to speak with ministry staff, that this is something that is raised and that we could work collaboratively to keep pushing this forward because it is an intersection that is of significant concern.
Okay, very good. Any further comments or questions on this? Seeing none, does anybody want to put a motion forward covering this at all? We're just going to move on. Seeing none, we'll just move on. So item 9.3, Shelburne sent a resolution to support the Melanchthon resolution regarding traffic calming measures. I don't think there's anything else to do with that one. Seeing none, we'll move on to our closed session. So before we move into closed session again, staff will place anyone who is not to be in the closed session into the waiting room. Staff will lock the meeting and the live stream will stop. People in the waiting room will see a message that once the meeting is open, they will be brought back in. If anyone tries to log into the meeting, they will receive a notice that the meeting is locked. Once council has made a motion to move back into open session, everyone in the waiting room will be brought back into the meeting and the live stream will start again. May I have a mover and a seconder to go into closed as per the Municipal Act, Section 239?